Hello. I'm so excited. Hey, Avalon. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Deborah. Hey, Rashmi. Everybody's connecting to audio. Hey, Deborah. How's it going? Okay. Just gonna let everybody come in. And then I'm gonna have Cheyenne just introduce herself in a minute, and I'll keep an eye on the minute. Okay. So if you all don't know Cheyenne is up, well, for me, she's up in the left side here. And Cheyenne is my right-hand lady love. Love this woman so much. And hi, Ben. Glad you're here. So I'm just gonna have Cheyenne introduce herself for a minute, and then I'll take it back from you when you're done.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. So happy to see everyone's faces. So if you, when you enrolled for the workshop, if you gave a phone number, you hopefully should have heard from me via text. If you didn't, I'll put my email and my phone number in the chat so that you guys have it, should you have any questions or want to reach me for anything. And so far, everyone looks good. I might send reminders in the chat, but you can just make sure that your Zoom name matches like your name, whatever you really want us to call you. Sometimes people come in and they have different names, but that way we know who you are and we know your contact info and all that jazz. So if for any reason you need to change it, like a good example is somebody just came in with C Dorset. I'm assuming that's Dorset's the last name, but if you want to give us your first name, you just click the 3 little dots in the right-hand corner of your video, and then like a pop-up list will come up and you just select rename, and then you enter your name first and last and press save, and you're good to go. That way we know if you have a question or anything and we call on you, we just know who you are. So I'll be here, I'll be in the chat, and I'm excited to connect with all of you.
Okay. So I'm excited to connect with all of you too. So tell me a little bit just in the chat right now, where are you in the world and what brought you to this workshop today specifically? Really just taking a minute to identify for yourself what your intention is for being here and what you're hoping to leave here today with knowing or feeling or having experienced would be helpful for me. And I'm going to keep my eye on the side here, but I am going to go ahead and get started because we don't have that much time together. So I am happy that all of you are here with me today. Before we get going, I just want to take a minute to ground into where we are together. So if you can find a comfortable seat for yourself and just close your eyes. And put your attention on your feet. And move your attention to your knees. Move the attention to the belly. And see if you can take an inhale and an exhale from this place. Maybe putting your hand to the belly to feeling it expand and contract. And move your attention now up to the heart center. Into the top of the head. And notice the sounds around you. And when you're ready, take a deep breath in and exhale. can circle the wrists, circle the shoulders up, back and down, circle the head. Maybe stretch out into space, just feel what space feels like right now. And when you're ready, you can blink your eyes open. Just notice the shapes and colors around you. And come back. Okay. So today, I'm going to pull out my slides. We're going to get into really how to stop having the same argument over and over again. If you are in relationship, let me know in the chat. If you are in a partnership, if you're married, if you are single, where are you in terms of relationships, romantic relationships, just so I can get a sense of where you guys are right now with all of that. Married, husband is on the call. Love that. Hi, Rashmi. It's good to see you. Reminded not to get defensive or reactive at times. Great. Ben in New Jersey. And okay. All right. So here we are. Okay. So today we're going to really talk to finding ways to become less reactive in these really difficult moments, right? So I want to know, first off, in the chat, and you can be active in the chat, okay? For me, it's really important that I see you in the chat so that it's interactive, engaged. I love that, Cheyenne. Okay, so which do you resonate with most here? So 1 minute, you are feeling really connected and conversation is easy and you're going about kind of your day-to-day relationship and everything feels great. And then suddenly someone says something or you say something and it's almost like a volcanic eruption happens. And one person reacts and then the other person reacts. One person lashes out, maybe one person gets passive aggressive, another person shuts down. And it may just feel like it's impossible to bring it back. So this is number one. If this is kind of what happens, put a 1 in the chat. Or it's possible that most of the time in your relationship, it feels like you are arguing, right? It feels like you are having these difficult interactions where nobody feels listened to, everybody feels attacked, everybody feels judged. And all you really want and all you're trying to do is get back to a place where it feels easy, it feels calm, where you feel connected again. And if this is you, or it feels like where you are, put a 2 in the chat, okay? So right now, you could also be in this place where there's just so much tension in the relationship that it doesn't feel possible to even get back on track, right? Where it feels like every argument just creates new arguments and then you have the same argument 1 week and then it comes back the next week and then it comes back the following week and it's just exhausting and you're tired, okay? If this is you, put a 3 in the chat. And the other is if really everything right now feels really great in your relationship, everything is going well, and you just really want to figure out how can I maintain this in the sense that when I get in these difficult interactions, when I have these arguments, can I just remain centered? Can I remain calm in what feels like confrontation? Can I remain, in this place where I can actually stay in the room and have a conversation and listen to things that may be difficult and listen to things that are uncomfortable? Okay, if this is you, feels like you, put a 4 in the chat. Okay, great. So we have a range, 4s, 3s, 2s. Awesome. So here's what happens, right? We're all pretty smart people, right? We're all very smart. And so at this point, it's possible that we just get a little stumped because we've read books to try to figure out how to feel more relaxed in these difficult interactions, how to, actually have more meaningful, deep conversation when we are flustered or when we are frustrated or when we are stressed. We've maybe gone to couples counseling. We've maybe gone to individual therapy, right? And we've meditated, we've done yoga, we've done like a lot of inner work. We've really tried to master kind of the inside for us to see results on the outside, though it's not happening, right? And maybe we've tried scripts from other people, right? A lot of people will try on other people's language and phrasing to see if that can be helpful in their relationship, right? And it's possible that maybe you've tried that as well. You've taken a communication class of some sort, you've gotten certain language to use, and maybe it works for a weekend, maybe it works for a day, but then it just goes pretty much right back to the way it was, right? So I just want you to know, first off, that there is nothing wrong with your relationship. Absolutely nothing wrong with the relationship, right? The issue is more that we've just never been taught how to argue skillfully with our partners. We've never been taught how to be in really difficult moments, being in confrontation, being called out on something, and being able to have a conversation at the same time. It's not something we're taught how to do. It's not something our bodies instinctively do. Our bodies actually do the complete opposite of what we want to be doing in these moments, right? And I'm going to talk to that in a little bit. So we've never been taught how to do this. So right now, I want you to take a minute. You can put it in the chat, or if you don't feel comfortable putting it in the chat, you can write it down on a piece of paper. But I want to know a little bit what you feel like arguing is, right? So what does arguing actually mean to you? And what does it make you feel about your relationship? Because so much of what can create even more stress in our interactions is thinking that we shouldn't be arguing. I say shouldn't because, the idea is that, we have the sense that maybe relationships, thriving, healthy relationships, people don't fight, they don't argue, they don't disagree, right? And a lot of the time when we start arguing in our relationships, or when we start having the same arguments in our relationships, it can make us feel like we aren't in the right relationship. It can make us feel, like we're never going to be able to find a partner who can understand us or hear us or listen to us, right? So arguing feels like something is failing, right? So whether it's in the relationship or myself, something is wrong. Exactly. So much of the way that we define arguing, or the way that we see it, is bad, right? We see arguing as a sign of failure in our relationships. And what we want to start to see if we can shift a little bit is, instead of seeing arguing as a bad thing, seeing if we can see it as a way to actually come together more, right? To create more intimacy, to create more connection with our partners. So what's happening right now is we're really just winging it, right? So arguing feels like we're failing because every time we have the argument, we are met with the same reaction over and over again, right? And so what's happening now is we're going off of instinct. We're going off of what we've always done. We're going off of the things that we've seen our parents do, the things that we've seen our friends do, things that have happened in our past relationships, things that we've learned from media, things that we've learned from teachers, right? We're really just going off of what our body innately does in these moments as well. And we're just fending for ourselves in these moments. And this is what is really happening in these moments. So our partner will say something and it pierces our heart. So it hits us directly into our, into the center of our being, to the point where we feel unsafe and we feel threatened. And so we go into protection mode. And what happens when we go into protection mode is we need to fend off what is the threat, right? We go into survival mode. And to be able to survive, we react, right? So this is some of you might know it as the fight, flight, freeze reaction, right? When you're in your sympathetic nervous system. When you're in your sympathetic nervous system, you have cortisol pumping through your body. You're extremely deep in the stress response, right? And so we are unable to think in that moment. We are unable to access ourselves fully in that moment. And all we are able to do is defend ourselves and react. Because in our minds can't really tell the difference between, right, a lion charging at us and our partner saying something that is uncomfortable. It still feels the same in the body. The body still feels unsafe in some way. And so for us to protect ourselves, what we do is we automatically react. Okay, so this is really a closed argument cycle that we're in. There's this version, and then there's also the other version, which is you say something, right? You say something to your partner, and then it hits them directly right into their heart, and they go into protection mode, and they move into their automatic reaction. And so you can notice very easily, it's much easier to notice in our partners often, right? If they're shutting down, if they're getting passive aggressive, if they're walking away, if they're acting like, a 2-year-old having like a tantrum. Yeah. So this is where a lot of us are caught day in and day out. And again, this is normal and this makes sense because we are human, right? And so because we are human, we are made to react. We are meant to react. So what we want though, instead, right? We want to move out of this like cyclone of our old arguments, ongoing arguments that just kind of build up. It's like relationship debt, right? You have one argument, you can't get out of it. You move into another argument, but really all the arguments, you're just argumenting. You're just arguing about the same exact thing over and over and over again, right? And the reason is because you haven't actually gotten to the root of what the issue is. We're going to get to that in a moment. But basically we get so caught up in the cyclone, right? In the like whirlwind of the arguments that we just start arguing with arguing. We start arguing with the argument itself, right? What we want to do instead though, is we want to complete an argument. Okay. So it's like, you want to see it as you have the closed loop cycle where you're just continually reacting to the same, the same stressor. Round and round you go, or we can complete an argument so that you're not having the same struggle. So how do you do that? We have to first really become skillful with our language, right? Because right now everything is automatic. So we have to first understand that we're going to argue, that we are going to have different ideas and thoughts and opinions as our partners, and we're still going to love them, right? We are going to feel frustrated and annoyed by them, by our partners. So we just have to learn to be annoyed and upset in a skillful way, right? It's not about not being annoyed and upset anymore. It's just about how can we actually make this easier to do, right? So that people feel better during the argument and after the argument. So it turns it's less of a back and forth and more of an actual conversation. Can we make that happen? Yes, we can, which is great. And the way to do that is to become more skillful. So to become more skillful means we have to become more intentional with the way that we are engaging, with the way we are connecting, with the way that we are communicating. So that means we need to become more conscious and deliberate with our language. We need to become more purposeful, right? So a completed argument really looks like, what we want it to look like is your partner says something and it pierces your heart, right? And in that moment, you soothe your discomfort, you soothe yourself in that moment, you access the present moment, then you're able to see your partner, then you make a decision to talk about it now, like the issue now or later, and then you express yourself consciously, clearly, and concisely. Right? So what often happens is the parts that we miss is all of this part, right? Like we don't just know how in these moments to soothe ourselves. And the reason is because we're caught in the stress cycle. But for us to be able to actually stay in the room and have a conversation and end an argument, complete an argument, the only way for us to do that is to be able to access ourselves in the moment, move ourselves from the sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic nervous system so we feel safe, so we feel secure in that moment to be able to express ourselves, to be able to have a conversation. Does this make sense? If it does, put a 1 in the chat. If you have questions, ask them. So a little bit about me. I'm Cynthia Kane. If you don't know me, this is me. I'm the CEO and founder of the Kane Intentional Communication Institute. I'm the author of How to Communicate Like a Buddhist, Talk to Yourself Like a Buddhist, and How to Meditate Like a Buddhist. And I have helped over 60,000 people change their love lives, really, by showing them how to stop having the same arguments again and again with their partners, helping them become more responsive and intentional instead of heated and reactive through our training program, books, and my workshops. And I do this practice and these strategies every day, right? I am a normal person who argues with their partner, whose default is getting very passive aggressive and shutting down. And this practice and these strategies is really what keeps me out of those old patterns so that I can enjoy my relationship. And it's something that I didn't think was possible for a really long time. This is me in the cyclone of old arguments. I was very much like a fan of this place, of just being in the same cycle over and over again. I was a fan of it because I didn't know that it was actually possible to be anywhere else, right? And I didn't think that I could have relationships that I saw other people having. And what happened though, right, was in this type of relationship, the common emotions that I experienced were all of these, right? And so I just want you to take a minute and see if any of these resonate with where you are right now, right? This is where I spent a lot of my time in past relationships. And if you're in a closed argument type of relationship, you may feel similarly, right? You may feel exhausted. You may feel overwhelmed. You may feel anxious. You may feel fearful, frustrated, embarrassed, angry, sad, lonely, stressed, guilty, ashamed, all of these, right? If you feel any of these, put a 3 in the chat. And the other thing I want you to think about is how often are you in these states, right? How often are you in these emotional states? So I would say rarely, pretty often, all the time, because I want you to just be able to see that where you are now is not helpful, right? Where you are now just is a place that feels exhausting, right? And it's stressful. And the great thing is that you don't have to be here. So this is where I lived for a lot of time. And it wasn't until, so my first love passed away unexpectedly. And it wasn't really until then that my whole world just completely turned upside down, right? And that was where I started to really try to understand how to move myself out of these states of suffering, right? These states, these emotional states. And I had to really figure out how to do this because I could have really just died along with him. And so that's where I went out and, you know, I took courses, I read books, I did everything to try to figure out how to enjoy my time here. And it all came down to communication, right? If I wanted to change my relationship, if I wanted to enjoy being in relationship with others, I was going to have to change the way that I communicated within it. And a friend of mine introduced me to a writing and meditation retreat or workshop at the Shambhala Institute in New York when I lived there. And that's where I learned the elements of right speech. And when I learned them, to tell the truth, don't exaggerate, use helpful language, don't gossip, I was like, this is it. This is my way out of my discomfort. I can do this. And then I woke up the next day wondering, how in the world do you actually speak in a kind, honest, and helpful way to yourself and to others? What does that even look like? And that's where my lifestyle experiment began. And that's where the Kane Intentional Communication practice began and was created, right? And this is the practice that, you know, I've taught to lots and lots of people, and it works. And here's the good news. The good news is that where you are right now, it's just a pattern, right? It's just a closed relationship argument. That's it. That's the cycle that you're in, and it's just a pattern. So all we have to do, we just have to break the pattern and create a new one. So these are the steps that I want to talk to today. I'm only going to share 3 of the 5 steps in the practice. And I'll tell you what the other steps are in the practice when we get later on. But today I'm just going to share with you 3. And I really believe that these 3 steps, these 3 strategies are going to help you stop having the same argument, to help you really complete an argument cycle, right? So that you can be, it can be a small, it can be a small flare up where it's like you're standing in the kitchen and, you're using the knife and your partner comes in and they don't like the way that you're using the knife and they start telling you a different way to use the knife. That can create a big argument for some relationships, right? Maybe you've had that experience. You can put a 4 in the chat if you've had that experience. I've had that experience, right? Where I'm like, I'm cutting it the way I cut it. Like, don't tell me how to cut my vegetables, right? And that can create like a big volcanic eruption potentially. Or you can have bigger conversations around, your sex life, or you can have to, you have to have, bigger conversations around finances, around, work, around health, around, schooling, education, and all those types of conversations can create a lot of stress and, wanting to make sure that you're heard. And it can range from like very heavy, what feel like heavy, serious topics to like the day-to-day, even as simple as, so Brian, my husband, he likes ice, right? I don't like ice in my water, but he likes ice in his water. And he will switch the refrigerator and push the ice. So ice comes out when you put put your glass into the, in to get water. And I mean, it happens probably, twice a week where I put my glass in and ice cubes come out instead of water. And he's like, just pay attention the next time, like just pay attention and look to see if it's on ice or water. And if it's on ice, just move it to water. And the old me would have been like, that's ridiculous. I think you should be the one, right? Like I would have reacted. I would have gone to like my place of potentially lashing out or getting defensive and getting passive aggressive and just being like, I don't know who he thinks he is to be able to talk to me that way, right? But now I'm like, you're right. I can just look and I can make my life easier and your life easier, right? So all of these things, they can be small, they can be big, but this all is around finishing an argument or finishing what is started, right? So that you don't have to, next week, I don't have to have that same conversation because I actually listened and changed my behavior, right? And if it bothered me, I would have had a conversation about it. We're going to talk to that. So into the first 3 steps. So first, listen to yourself. What we often think listening to ourselves means is listening to our thoughts. And a lot of times people are like, well, I listen to myself all the time and it's really exhausting and it's not really getting me anywhere. And that's because we think we're supposed to be listening to our thoughts. That's what we think listening to ourselves means. And our thoughts in these situations might look something like, she has no right to talk to me like that. I'm just done. He doesn't understand anything I'm saying. I'm so tired of this. I know how it's going to go and it's not going to go well. And I just want things to be different. I want things to be easier. I want things to be less complicated. If any of you have, thought any of these things, let me know in the chat, or I'd like to hear some of the thoughts that you do have, right? But from now on, what I'd like for you to think of in terms of your thoughts is just instead of listening to your thoughts about you and your partner and your relationship, now your job is just to notice them, right? See if you can just notice the thoughts that you're having instead of becoming the thought that you're having, okay? But what does listening to yourself really mean? So first, the most important piece that we have to get to is we have to understand our default reaction, right? Because if the pattern is your partner says something, it pierces your heart, you protect yourself, you go into your default reaction, which is automatic. We first have to really understand what is that reaction that you have. So most of the time, these are typical default reactions, right? You can get passive aggressive, you can lash out, you can stop speaking, you can dodge, you can lie, you can make excuses, you can shut down completely, you can get angry, you can exaggerate, you can over-explain, you can defend, you can just start taking things personally, you can interrupt, you can get louder, right? You can start gossiping, you can get dismissive. So I'd love for you guys to just think a minute, and you might think, well, I'm all of these things. And it's true, we do have all of these tendencies, though there is a dominant one. There's one that starts the domino effect. So taking a moment now, just think of the last interaction you had, the argument that you had. Where did you go? Automatically, right? Shutting down, getting defensive. Yeah. My go-to is I get passive aggressive and walk away. I just wanna walk away. Over explaining. Yeah. Shutting down, taking things personally and immediately lashing out. Yes. So all of these reactions that we have, really important for us to know. Okay. So now we know this is where we go when we are feeling threatened in some way, right? Where we are feeling discomfort in some way, where we are feeling the need to protect ourselves, shutting down. Yeah. So I just want you to pat yourself on the back, because your default reaction is not something to be angry at or mad at or frustrated by, right? It's not something for us to get down on ourselves for, because what it's going to help us do is change our pattern, right? Same thing with the next piece. So now we know, okay, our default reaction, we go directly to shutting down. We go directly to becoming defensive. What's happening though in our body, right? So the minute that your partner says something to you that causes a reaction in you, what sensation is happening? Do you sweat? Does your jaw get clenched? Like, do you clench your jaw? Does your chest tighten up? Dry throat? Yeah. Do you feel like you're caving inwards, heart pounding? Yep. Swallowing a lot. Maybe you swallow a lot. Maybe you can feel your breath getting really shallow. Maybe, like some students say, it feels like there's like a queasy feeling in my chest, or like a punch in the gut. Yeah. Like anxiety, heart pounding, tight chest, clenched jaw, heart pounding, crying. Yes. So all of this is beautiful, okay? Because the sensation is not something we want to run from. It is something that we want to run toward, in the sense that the sensation in the body is your cue. It becomes your cue to know that you are about to go into your default reaction, right? So if your heart's pounding, if your throat is drying up, if you're clenching your jaw, you are about to become passive aggressive. You are about to lash out. You are about to shut down, right? You are about to go into your reactive behavior. And so what we want to start getting really good at doing is slowing everything down, slowing our interactions down, so that we can start to see what is actually happening within the interaction, right? Seeing ourselves almost as if we are observing the interaction instead of being within the interaction. So your partner says something, sensation in the body, heat rising in the body, heart pounding, sweating, right? There it is. There's my cue. Now I know I'm about to default into my default reaction, but instead I'm going to change the pattern. So how do I change the pattern? I have to start listening to how I'm talking to myself in that moment, right? So how am I talking to myself about my partner? How am I talking to myself about that interaction? And oftentimes it's happening so fast. And again, our work is to really learn how to slow everything down. Though it's happening so quickly, what's happening in that moment is we're talking to ourselves and we're saying to ourselves things about our partner, right? So we are like, I can't believe he thinks that I can't believe that he thinks that I don't know how to cut vegetables. I can't believe he thinks that, I'm not capable of, cooking this meal in 20 minutes or whatever it might be. But in our minds, we are talking about our partner. We are turning them into the enemy, right? And so what we have to do in that moment is we have to talk to ourselves differently. We have to drop the story that we're creating, and we have to just focus on the direct experience and the feeling instead. So what that means, right? This is story. Like whenever we talk, he doesn't listen. Yesterday, I sat with my husband and he wasn't listening to me. I say the same thing over and over again and nothing. He doesn't care about what I'm saying. And I know he'd rather be doing something else. He thinks I'm a nag and thinks what I'm saying is stupid. Okay. This is story. Direct experience is what really happened. Yesterday, I sat with my husband and he didn't listen to what I said, right? I tell this story a lot, and a lot of you who have been on past workshops with me or who have done work with me probably know this, but the way to understand direct experience that I think works really well is there is a story about a student who is meditating. And after the meditation, his teacher is asking him, so how was the meditation for you? And he said, well, my jaw hurt. And then, I started thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to get a root canal and I don't have the money for that. I don't have dental insurance. I was just, I was just about to remodel something in my house and now I'm not going to have any money for that. And the teacher says, so your jaw hurt, right? That's what we want to start to understand in this moment. So here we are, our partner, we've turned into the enemy. Instead, we just want to drop that story and we want to focus on what really happened. What happened? They said something that felt hurtful to me, right? Or, he came home later than he said he was going to come home, or she didn't take out the trash. I'm using very simple examples, but this is what we want to understand, right? Just what happened, and then the feeling. So in those moments when you don't feel heard or listened to, right? What is the actual feeling? And you guys can type in if you want to, maybe a scenario where maybe the last argument or the argument that you feel like you're having over and over again. And we can look to see, right? Is there a way for you to drop the story, focus on the direct experience, and identify the feeling? It might be something that you also want to just do on your own too, right? And the reason why this is important is because when we get to the expression piece, when we get to speaking, the only way for our partners to understand us and be able to hear us is if we are speaking about the direct experience and the feeling, not the story. The story, all the story does is cause confusion, right? It creates misunderstanding. So that's why we want to start paying attention to what is story and what is the direct experience. Okay. So if I see some come in, I'll go to it, but I'm going to keep going because I just saw that it's 4:41 already. So here we are, we have the sensation going in the body. It's cueing us to know, okay, I'm about to default into my default reaction. I'm understanding now that I need to talk to myself differently in this moment. And I am going to drop the story of, my partner as the enemy. And instead I'm going to just focus on what's happened and the feeling. And what I need to do right now is I need to soothe my own suffering. So in this moment, we are in such a heightened state of stress because, again, right, our body feels like we are being chased by a tiger. That's really what it feels like in these moments. So we have to find a way to bring ourselves back into rest in this moment, calm in this moment. And so we have to soothe our own suffering. So to do that, we first notice, right? Okay, we're outward focused. We're seeing our partner and we're talking about our partner outwardly. Once you notice that, you just have to say, okay, I'm going to move my attention. I'm going to soothe my own suffering. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to, bring my hand to my wrist. I'm going to squeeze my fist. I'm going to push my fist into my leg. And I'm going to say to myself, you're feeling really invisible right now. You're feeling really unheard right now. And it's okay. We're okay. I've got you, right? So in that moment, you are accessing your parasympathetic nervous system so that your body feels safe. So you, in the moment, though you want your partner to be the one soothing you, you become the one that soothes your own suffering so that then you can have a conversation. Okay. If this is making sense, put a 2 in the chat. Okay, good. So, and you can find different ways, right? Maybe you have a ring, right? Like maybe your ring, you just push into the ring and you start talking to yourself differently in that moment. You acknowledge what you're feeling in that moment. You acknowledge that you're angry, that you're pissed off, that you're frustrated, that you feel stupid, that you feel guilty, that you feel embarrassed, that you feel, unsuccessful, unhelpful, disrespected. And you let yourself know that even though you feel that way, it's okay because you've got you in that moment. Okay. So that's the listening to yourself piece. That's really the first step to all of this is we have to understand the sensation that's happening in the body. And we have to start to soothe our own suffering in the moment. We have to understand how we're talking to ourselves in the moment so we can redirect ourselves to access ourselves so that then we can listen to our partner, right? There's no way that we can listen to our partner in an argument if we are in such a heightened state of stress. Okay, so here we are, we've calmed our nervous system down. We're here now. Okay, now what happens? Now we have to listen. Now we have to listen to our partner and what they're saying, even though it's really difficult to do. So what we think that means, nodding our head, saying things like, I hear you, giving advice, relating experience, like our own experiences to theirs, waiting for our turn to talk, or sometimes it's even just pretending to listen while we're thinking how ridiculous and wrong they are, right? Most of the time, what we think of as listening is just distraction, right? We are actually distracted as opposed to truly being there. So what listening to your partner really means is learning how to be present. So the process of being present in a conversation is focused attention. Your focused attention is on your partner, right? You get distracted by the thoughts that you're having about them, by the talking to yourself that isn't helpful. You get distracted, you get pulled away. And then you just notice it. I'm completely distracted. I'm really, angry at my partner right now. I'm really frustrated right now. I can't even think right now. I can see that that's happening. I see it. Okay, I see it. Thanks so much for sharing. I'm just going to come back and refocus my attention to my partner. And it doesn't matter how many times you have to do that in the conversation, because that is what makes it so that going forward, you are more present because you will have less distraction, because you're training your brain actually in that moment to become more one-pointed focus, right? To come back to the present moment again and again, to come back to the present moment, to notice I'm not here, I'm coming back. I'm not here, I'm coming back, right? So listening to your partner means being present, and it means that we have to ask ourselves internal questions. And I know that might sound weird because you're like, well, I'm supposed to be listening to my partner. But the only way, again, that we can truly listen to our partner is first we have to calm ourselves down, which we've already done. Now we have to give ourselves permission to listen, right? So we have to ask questions to help us listen. We have to give ourselves permission in the moment to help us listen, or else we're just not gonna be there, right? We're just gonna argue and go into our reactive mode. So questions that we want to ask, and this is all happening internally, right? And silently. So you're not asking all of these questions, but you're just going to ask a few to get you to the place where you can actually see your partner as somebody that you care for, somebody that you respect, and somebody that you want to be helpful to, and somebody that you want to be supportive of. And sometimes you're not going to be able to find that place in an argument. And that's okay too, right? You can continually come back to the argument or come back to the feeling that you had within the argument to have a conversation towards it. So, when you're standing there and your partner is expressing themselves and it's uncomfortable for you, being able to see, can I let my partner have this reaction? Can I just let them be angry right now? Can I let them finish? Can I let them be upset? Can I let them be excited? Can I just let them have whatever reaction they have? Can I let them feel what it is that they're feeling and think what they think without trying to fix it or change it? Right? And really asking just simple questions of what would this moment feel like if I didn't need to fix it or solve it, right? And then again, we're continually trying to calm ourselves so that we can listen. So being able to say, even though I'm upset right now, like, can I see their discomfort? Can I see them as human, right? And even though it's hard for me to admit, are they telling the truth? Right? Do I need to accept this? Like, even though it was small with the water example, I mean, I did need to accept the fact that I could, oh no, not the water example, something else happened. I'm like, something else, some other argument that we had that we completed was around, and I'm not sure why it started happening, but like the last week or so, Brian will ask Holden's our son, a question, and I'll answer. And Brian goes, so I'm asking Holden, I'm not asking you, I'm asking Holden. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know why I keep answering for him. And he was like, okay, well, can you just like pay attention to that? Sure. When he first said it to me, though, in my body, I could feel the sensation rising in my body and wanting to be like, it's not that big of a deal. It's totally fine, right? But it's true. It's not something that I need to be doing, right? So can I accept that? Can I admit that? Yes, I can. And so then you move to the next, right? Can you let your partner feel this way? And then, reminding yourself, I can stay in the room and have a conversation. That's really important. Okay. So we have the internal questions now, giving ourselves the permission so that we can listen to our partner. So now we have gotten to the place where we can listen to our partner. So the next step we have to learn how to do is we have to learn how to speak consciously, clearly, and concisely. Because remember, what's been happening is we've just been winging it, and it's just automatic, right? It's just everything's coming out quickly and fast, and we're not really paying attention to what's happening. The issue, though, is that with speaking, because we've tried it before and it hasn't worked, and it's just created the same cycle of reaction, right? These volcanic explosive arguments potentially. That's what we define it as. So we start to actually fear expressing ourselves, fear speaking up. So we think that by expressing ourselves, it's going to create that cyclone of arguments, that it's going to mess everything up, right? I mean, you can even type in the chat if you think expressing yourself makes a difference right now, right? If you think talking is helpful right now, because often what happens is we get to a place where we're like, it's not even worth it, because it's just creating more confusion and more complication. And, it's not worth the reaction that I'll get. And then what happens is that everything gets piled up on top of that. And then we go more into our default reactions, and the same arguments continue because we've not ever addressed it in a way that others, like that our partner, can actually understand. But what speaking really gives us is it gives us this possibility to complete the argument cycle. It gives us the possibility to finish an argument, which is incredible. It gives us this opportunity to move our relationship more in the direction that we want it to go. It creates more intimacy. It's a way to even gather information to see if what we want and need is even possible within the relationship. And it really frees us up from, struggling within our partnership or suffering in some way or feeling discomfort in our relationship. So speaking to your partner in a way that they can hear you is really important. The way to do it is to speak consciously, clearly, and concisely. So right now we use automatic language. It just comes out, right? A lot of students will be like, I just don't even know what I'm saying, but it just falls out of my mouth. And it just, after it's said, I regret saying it, or after it's said, it just causes more of the same. So automatic language can look like you have no idea what I'm going through, and you do this to me every time I try to tell you about my work. You tell me what to do and how to fix the issue, which you don't even know anything about to be able to solve. You don't pay attention to what it is that I'm actually saying, and it sucks, right? So from this, what your partner will hear is, I'm stupid. I can't get anything right. There's no way for me to help. Instead, though, if we're conscious, clear, and concise, it looks like, when I tell you about my work and you suggest ways to fix the problem, I feel frustrated. I know that's not your intention and you're trying to help. The next time I tell you an issue I'm having for work, if I ask, you can give me advice. But if I don't, can you just acknowledge how difficult of a situation that may be? Right? Very clear, concise, very conscious. There's no story in here. It's the direct experience. This is what happened. This is the feeling, right? And now, bye, Rashmi. Now your partner hears what I'm doing now isn't helpful. What would be helpful for me is to not give advice until I'm asked. Can I do that for him or her? Yes or no, right? And it makes it much easier for our partner to know their role, to know what's expected or what's wanted and what's not. So to really become conscious, clear, and concise, first we have to listen to ourselves. Then we have to listen to our partner, right? Because that's the only way we're going to know what it is that we want and what it is that we need and what the conversation needs. And then we take a beat, we take a breath, and we become conscious. We ask ourselves, is now the right time to talk about this? Is it the right time to talk now, or is it the right time to talk later? Is what I have to say true? Is what I have to say kind? Is what I have to say helpful? Right? Then we get clear. We have to use specific language, not vague language, because that only causes confusion. So it's like if somebody says, I need this in by the end of the day. The end of the day to me means 5 p.m., but the end of the day to someone else, it might mean 6:30, right? So we need to get really specific and really clear so there's no misunderstanding. And then concise means we cut the fat in our conversations. We really start to look at what's necessary to say, what's not necessary to say, what's helpful, what's hurtful, right? What's going to move the conversation forward, not keep it stuck in the same place, right? So speaking in this way means that we're being very intentional, right? As opposed to before, where we're just winging it and we're just going off of instinct. So by doing that, we complete an argument, right? We finish one argument because we're actually expressing ourselves. So we're able to say, I understand that you are looking forward to, going to, I understand that you're looking forward to the trip that we have planned next week. And I'm really excited to go as well. When we go, can we make sure that we are, going to dinner around 7 p.m. so that I can be home, so that we can be home early and have like a good night's rest the first night, right? It's like simple language, very concise language, so that we don't get into these miscommunications and misunderstandings. So this is really the way, right, to not get us stuck in these reactionary cycles. We have to express ourselves, and we have to do it in a conscious, clear, and concise way. And something that will come up for people is, a lot of students will say, well, what happens if I express myself and I ask for what it is that I need, or, I ask for what it is that I want, and they don't pay attention, or they don't do it, or, they just come back, or, they get distracted, or they're just like, well, I can't believe you even need that, or I can't believe you would even ask for that, right? All you're doing in that moment, you're going back into the soothing your discomfort, right? You're soothing your discomfort in that moment. You're holding, I tell my students, it's like, I don't know if it's called the Atlas man. I think that's what it is, where he's like holding the world, right? Like with his hands. And so in those moments, that's what you're doing for your partner. You're just allowing them to have whatever reaction that they're having. Reaction isn't a bad thing. We just have to start becoming accustomed to it, right? How much of it can we hold? And then we allow them to react that way. And then we come back to what it is that we're saying. We just ask again, right? And if they're not able to commit to what we're asking for, that's fine. Now we know. And now we won't have the same argument again. We won't have the same conversation again, because we understand that they're not able to meet us there, right? And then we decide if that's okay for us or not. If it's okay, awesome. If it's not, then maybe we have another conversation, right? So does this all make sense? Are there any questions about it? No? Okay. So these are 3 strategies, right? But I will tell you that you really need all of them. So these are the rest of the strategies as well. So meditation and silence. Meditation is really specific meditations for communication. I really believe that the way that we are in communication is how we are in meditation, right? Especially because we get distracted, we see our distractions, we come back to the present moment, and it really trains us to become more responsive instead of reactive. The silence piece right now within conversations, we don't pay attention to it that much, but if you look at it, it's possible that you use silence to push away, or to punish, or to manipulate, or to power over. And instead, what we want to learn how to do is we want to learn how to use our silence to create more collaboration and cooperation. So in those moments, we start adding silence more into our conversation so that we can access ourselves to know, am I keeping the integrity of the conversation intact, right? Is this moving in a hurtful direction, or is this moving in a helpful direction? What do I need, right? If you don't listen to yourself, you're not going to be able to become responsive. You're not going to be able to be calm in those difficult moments, or be able to complete the argument, right? You're not going to be able to stop the argument, because you're going to be perpetuating it, because you won't be able to understand the sensation in the body. You won't know that you're moving into your default reaction. You won't know how to soothe yourself. So you will just be in that heightened state. If you're not listening to your partner, then you're not able to have a conversation either, right? Because you are just stuck within what is in your mind, what you think is right, what you think is wrong, what you think is best, right? You're not able to see your partner as a friend in that moment. You are only able to see them as the enemy. And it will make it very difficult for you to be present with them and connect, right? If you're not able to speak consciously, clearly, and concisely, everything is just flying out, and you're going to use hurtful language, and it will just be automatic, and there will be no thought to it, and it will create a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunications and be very vague, right? if you're not incorporating silence into your interactions, you're not going to have that space. Remember in the beginning, I mentioned about like slowing down. We have to learn how to slow down. A lot of that is incorporating silence into our conversations. So if we don't learn how to do that, then it's very difficult for us to listen to ourselves, to listen to our partner, to be able to speak, right? And then if we aren't meditating, meditation to me is like the glue of all of this. It's the formal practice of Cain intentional communication, because if we aren't meditating, then we aren't able to understand what it is that we want, what it is that we need. We're not able to understand when we're distracted and when we're present. We're not able to see whether we are, being kind, whether we're being honest, whether we're being helpful. Meditation really helps us to access our parasympathetic nervous system. So what we're doing in meditation is really training ourselves formally to be in these difficult interactions and be able to access the parasympathetic. So we really need all of them. Any questions that anyone has? I know we're at the hour. So if you have to pop off, I understand. I'm looking to the chat to see if there are any questions. Nope. Okay. So obstacles to this, right? The obstacles is that it won't work for my relationship and that my partner will think I'm nuts. That I am trying to practice all these things and I'm trying to, do this while he's doing this, and that it's all like formulaic and all of that, right? That it's going to be too much work. And what's so different about this? Yeah. So I will say that it will work for your relationship, because the beautiful thing about this practice is that it's for everyone. Mwah. Bye. That it really works for everyone, because it's teaching you a specific practice, right? And it's possible that your partner will think you're nuts, but at the same time, what's wonderful is that once you start to incorporate it and implement it and practice it, the changes will be so profound, because you won't be having these same arguments again and again. You're going to be changing the way that you show up in your interactions, and their only way is to change along with you, right? They can't interact with you in the same way they have been if you're interacting differently. So they're going to start to see the changes happening within the way that you're connecting and the way that it's changing your relationship. And they're just going to get on board too. We've seen it happen over and over and over again, right? Too much work. I will say that it's like anything that you have not done before. In the beginning, there is a bit more of a learning curve, right? It will take more effort. Though the more you do it, the easier it gets. It's like working out, right? If you haven't done it and you start, afterwards, you're sore and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. And then pretty soon you don't even notice it and you're lifting like 10, 12 pound weights. I consider that to be a lot of weight. And what's different about this is that it is a practice, right? It's not scripts. It's not telling you how to speak. It's not telling you what to say. It's teaching you how to expand your level of discomfort to be able to have a conversation, right? How can you have these interactions with your partner and have them feel easier, more calm, have it actually feel more of like a conversation where you can be angry and you can be upset without shutting down, without getting passive aggressive, without yelling at each other, without walking away, so that you come back and you have the same interaction again and again, right? The difference is that you will actually have a practice that's happening for you in the moment so that you have a different interaction, right? So I just want you to ask yourself, basically, You want to stop having the same arguments with your partner, but what is holding you back? And just put it in the chat for me. Right? It could be you, it could be your partner, it could be lots of different things, right? But I will say that if you want to stop having the same argument, that really learning this practice is a strategy, right? Because it will help you feel seen and heard in your romantic relationship. It's going to help you feel way more calm and connected and a lot more satisfied within your relationship. We've had it so many times that I get triggered now, worry she won't be open to it. Right. So all of these things, right, that you've had the same conversation so many times, and the worry of the reaction, all of that fear is what is holding you back from having more connection, more intimacy, right? It makes it so that the possibility of more that's there for you, that you know is there for you in your relationship, isn't even an opportunity, isn't even a possibility, right? And so I say this often, but the desire for your relationship to feel a certain way and be a certain way in these moments has to be stronger than your fear for this, right? Like for you to actually take the next step to start practicing these strategies. And the beautiful thing too, Ben, is that your partner doesn't even have to be open to it, right? They don't even have to know anything about it, because what happens is that the moment that you start incorporating these practices, the moment things begin to change and the easier things get, right? And like, it's impossible, like I said before, to have the same conversations if you're starting to interact differently. Okay. So I want to share with you guys about our training program, about the Cane Intentional Communication Training Program, where we go into all of these steps within the practice and where you really get the support and the accountability that you need when you are trying to change this pattern of behavior. Trying to do this on your own, it's totally possible, but it will take a very long time. It took me a very long time, which is why I do the work that I do to help others get there faster, right? And so I really want to help you get to where you want to be in your relationship in these moments faster, like tomorrow, right? And it's possible to do. And so if you are feeling stuck in your relationship, if you're wanting to feel more fulfilled and connected, if you are having the same argument again and again with your partner and you're exhausted by it, you know, if you're really just ready to make a lasting change, then the training is definitely for you. Okay. I will say that if you are having a lot of arguments or just a lot of disagreements, what will change with this practice is you will have less arguments. Yes, you will have disagreements, but they won't become arguments, right? You will have more conversation about your differences. You will have more conversation about what you disagree on. And it's really incredible to see how much that opens up your connection, right? The freedom that you feel, the lightheartedness that comes back into the relationships, the ease that comes back into the relationship, the calm, right? The fear that you have right now, like that worry that's there of, should I say something? Shouldn't I say something? If I say this, you know, my partner is going to react like this. All of the stuff that we say in our heads, all of that is going to just like dwindle away, because you're going to understand how to work with the fear that's coming up. You're going to feel the fear and learn how to do it anyway, right? There's that phrase that's like, feel the fear, do it anyway. But how do you actually do that? That's what you get to learn how to do, right? You get to learn how to be scared and how to express that to your partner and have your partner hear it and support you. It's pretty phenomenal. So the training consists of, or it's made up of online training videos You get my books, How to Communicate Like a Buddhist, Talk to Yourself Like a Buddhist, How to Meditate Like a Buddhist, in a training workbook. We go through those books in the training program. Weekly group calls with me. And the group calls are incredible. That's where, we check in on the lessons, what's happening, in your practice, what you're celebrating, what challenges are coming up. We get into what's coming up for you in your day-to-day, in your relationship, and getting the feedback that you need and the practices you need for that moment, right? And it's a really wonderful community of people. Everybody is there practicing and working on the exact same thing as you, right? We're all wanting to be more kind and honest and helpful in these moments. And we're all there to support one another and really help us get to the place where this becomes our default. And that's actually what the training program really helps do. It helps this way of interacting become your default way of interacting. So you will revert back to old patterns for sure, but you're going to catch them really quickly. And you'll be able to come back to this new way very easily. And this really becomes the way forward. You get one-to-one calls throughout. You get 4 one-to-one calls throughout the training program. These are with your own instructor. And the one-to-one calls are really where you show up and you express what's coming up for you in your relationship, getting the feedback that you need at that time. There's specific things that we do on those calls because we have to get you to a certain place in the training program by the end so that you get the result, right? There's meditations that are specific for communication, and we prescribe those throughout the training program. There's a community group that is there for only those going through the training, and it's to support you and where you can ask questions and where you can share your celebrations and your intentions. We do a 4-month check-in after the training program just to see how things are going. We've not had one person that we've checked in with who's not using the practice. Like I said before, it really becomes your default way because you are changing your pattern of interacting. You are changing your habit of interacting, right? It's 15 weeks. It's pretty much your first 3 weeks are your foundation, and then the rest is all implementation, all practice. It's super important. I can't stress this enough. Before when we started, I showed that big pile of books. You can read books all day long, you guys. You can take courses all day long, but if you don't practice and you don't have the support that you need to be able to make this a part of, it's very difficult to change your communication habits. So our goal is really to give a person a fish, feed them for a day, teach a person to fish, feed them for a lifetime. We are teaching you to fish. That is what we are doing. This is a life skill that we are teaching you. And I will say that even though this is specific to what's happening in your relationship right now with your partner, this will also trickle over into work relationships, friendships, family relationships. I mean, you name it, it just has this beautiful ripple effect. The investment, it's 2 monthly payments of $1,250, so that's a total of $2,500, or 5 monthly payments of $560, so that's a total of $2,800. So 2 monthly payments of $1,250 or 5 monthly payments of $560. And the bonus for those of you who are joining now or enrolling now is a one-to-one call with me. So you already get 4 one-to-one calls with your own instructor. But if you join this week, you will also get a one-to-one call with me as well. When does it start? Monday, April 25th is when you get access to the welcome material in lesson 1. And then we get started with our first group call on Wednesday, April 27th at 3 p.m. Eastern. The group calls are on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern every week that you are in the training program. And they're with me, and I love them. They're amazing. So I can go through, some testimonials of people who have gone through the training program. We have a lot of testimonials. The training really does work, you guys. So if you have questions, put them in the chat, so I can answer them if you have them. And also just know that enrollment is open this week. It'll close on Sunday because Monday is going to be the start. So Sunday, the 24th. Is that what it is? Sunday the 24th is when we'll close enrollment for this next group going through. So Siddiqa, she is actually, I love Siddiqa because she reached out to me like a handful of years ago, and we talked about the training, and it wasn't right for her at the time. Okay, bye, Ben. And she then came back 3 years later and was in a worse off place than she was when we talked. And she was like, I'm ready, let's do it. So she started the training program, and her intimate relationship has changed so much with her husband. Difficult conversations. She actually told me the other day that she was looking forward to having them. I mean, I love difficult conversations now, but imagine getting to the place where you actually like having those conversations with your partner because you know what's on the other side, or you know how to actually navigate them. So that's what you get to experience. Mickey stopped being, overreactive and taking things personally. And she really often referred to herself as like a child. She felt like she was a child in these interactions, and she wanted to feel like a wise adult. She really wanted to feel like she was having adult conversations. And that's what she was able to receive with the training program. Rashmi, just really being able to be more calm and relaxed and responsive, right? Instead of that automatic language, really being conscious and clear and concise. With Francie, the training program really helped her negative self-talk, the piece that we talked to a little bit in the beginning of the call today, just how often our relationships really suffer because of the way that we talk to ourselves about our partner, or the way that we talk to ourselves about ourselves within our relationship, or just about the relationship itself, right? Like that could be anything from, she doesn't find me attractive, or he thinks that I'm selfish, or our relationship doesn't look like, Julie and Jerry's relationship where they're always laughing and going traveling together, and ours looks completely different, right? All of that type of talk can create more of that reactionary cycle that we just talked about. It can create more arguments. So we work a lot on that in the training program, to really help you move out of the negative self-talk and start to talk to yourself differently in those moments to help you. Kevin was in the training program, and it really just helped him control his anger, right? We aren't going to lose, like I said before, we're not going to lose being like angered or the frustration. We're still going to feel it. We're going to feel it actually even more, because through the training program, you really learn how to feel everything. It's not about pushing anything away anymore and pretending that we don't feel it anymore. It's about like, hey, let's bring it in, let's make friends with it and figure out how can we talk to it differently? How can we bring this in so that we can actually have a conversation while it's still there? I often say that it's like we learn to move it to the side. So you have the emotion, you learn to move it to the side so you can access yourself in the moment and talk to the emotion later. Kathy, she, within the training program, just feeling happier since she has since childhood. And she really was able to change a lot of her reactionary habits in her relationship with her husband. And Eugenia, when she joined the training program, it was really for her about difficult conversations and not being able to navigate them. And again, most of us don't know how to navigate them. It's not something we've ever been taught. So this really gives you the framework for that, right? It really teaches you how to feel at ease in those interactions that feel really, really hard and really, really stressful, and like you just want to run from, right? So if anyone has questions, pop them in the chat. I know that we went over today, but I wanted to make sure we got through it all, and we did. Okay, so I'm just gonna look over to the chat to see if there's any questions. I'll give it a minute and take a sip of tea. You can unmute yourself and ask a question too if you want. Okay. So with that, why don't we just end with a little meditation? So go ahead and close your eyes and just relax into the space where you are. And go ahead and bring your right hand to your heart and your left hand to your belly. And start to breathe in and out, feeling your hands rising and falling. And see if you can really breathe into your belly more than your chest. You can go ahead and drop the hands and just sit in stillness. And slowly blink your eyes open and just come back. Just a little ending to ground us. Thank you all so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I hope that it was helpful for you. I would love to know, and Cheyenne will be reaching out to see what the biggest takeaways were for you today, and what you think you'll be able to start practicing or implementing now, because you can. And I will say that if you need our help, we are here for you 100%. We've not had one person go through the training program who has not completed it and who has not gotten the results that they've entered wanting, right? So it's a village. It is not something that you join and you're left to your own devices. It really is a community, and that's what we really need when we're going through this work. So sending all of you lots of love, and we will connect soon. Mwah. Bye.